Can you guys actually hear that when it says that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And welcome to Three Geeks in a Microphone podcast. I'm Dean.
I'm Art.
I'm Russ.
And today we're going to be discussing the 1985 film My Science Project. Guys, had you ever seen this movie before, or initial impressions?
I had it was years ago on like the USA Network, same as The Wraith. It was on a Saturday afternoon.
Okay. Russ?
Okay, funny story. I had not seen it before, but I had started to see it years ago. And so we would have this friend that would record movies off HBO or whatever back like 1987, 88. And we'd go down and watch movies with this friend, and my mom and my sister and I would go down, and Mom and Dad would let me watch Platoon. They'd let me watch Full Metal Jacket. I'd seen Beverly Hills Cop, F-bombs, swear words. But the minute that the middle finger pops up out of the guy's trunk, Mom was like, nope, we're not watching this. And I never saw it since until just about 3 days ago.
This was one of my favorite movies as a kid. Vince Latello was just so damn cool. I mean, he hates authority. He's got a car that has a neon middle finger, and he's got some of the best one-liners I've ever heard. So I figured let's delve into it. So the movie opens up, and what is it, 1950, 57 or 53? What year was Roswell?
It was 47 in real life.
I think they said this was like 1958.
Yeah,
sounds right. Yeah, because that's
because it's the year my mom graduated, and that mental note kicked in.
Because that's what they're implying, that this is like Roswell. You have a UFO crash, and next thing you know, you have this convoy going to the Air Force Base, and the president steps out, who I believe is supposed to be, it's Eisenhower.
Yeah.
And he even says it, now, Max, what can be worse than invading Europe? Walks in and he sees they're tearing apart the ship, and he just colonel says to him, it flew into our airspace, it made a mockery of our intercept squadrons, suffered a malfunction, and crashed. And in his wisdom, they pulled the engine out of the thing, and then they use a laser to destroy it. A laser like that in 1958? Okay, whatever.
Yeah, I was laughing. That's the first thing I was like, eh?
And then it jumps forward to 1985. And you got John Stockwell, who plays Michael, and then Vince Latello, played by Stephen Fisher. Fisher Stevens, thank you. He's in class, and of course you have, oh my God, what is his name? Their teacher.
Oh, Dennis Hopper.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Dennis Hopper is their damn science teacher. How crazy is that? Especially that crazy speech he gives about, the only thing he needed to pass was in the 60s was a Frisbee, and he's sitting there sucking on oxygen.
Yeah.
So they find out that he's got 2 weeks to go and he hasn't finished his science project yet. And he's having just a bad day. His girlfriend dumps him. He finds out he's going to fail if he doesn't finish his science project. Vinny doesn't care. So what do you think of his goat? The car, the GTO. The first time you see it, that's a gorgeous car.
Yeah, I love the car.
Yeah, well,
right.
I mean, yeah, it was It's not something I was really into, but it was a cool car.
So as we go on, he realizes he has to, like I said, he has to do something for his to graduate. So what do you call Sherman, who was played by, what is his name? I got it here. He was in Werewolf. Labar, what is his name? Hold on, I have it in my notes here. Raphael Sabarge. He was the same dude that the only other thing I've ever seen him in was Werewolf on the Fox network. He plays the stereotypical nerd, and he is dating Ellie, and she decides to pop the distributor cap right at the entrance of the parking lot so no one can get out, to trick Harlan into taking her on a date.
And was he actually dating this girl, or was he just like into her, trying to ask her out?
Then I think about it, I don't know if he were dating or not, because if you remember earlier when she snaps the picture of him, the first thing she says is, "Hey, I know it's kind of short notice, but do you want to go to prom?" So what do you guys think? Were they dating? Because even later, the bullies, if you will, this is, "Hey, I thought you were going out with Ellie Sherman," and he just kind of blows it off. What do you think? Were they dating, or was he getting friend zoned?
I think he was friend zoned, not even friend zone. I think it was more like nerd likes the semi nerd pretty girl, and in his mind they were dating because she talked to him, type of person.
Okay. Art.
And
oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, I was done. Yeah.
I don't know. I think he liked her, but I thought it was more of she kind of didn't see him that way.
Okay.
Because she was into Michael. I mean, she kind of only had eyes for Michael, and Michael was kind of indifferent toward her at first.
Yeah, remember, she also wanted to make sure that she wasn't voted spinster of the class.
Yeah, senior class spinster. So
no, she wouldn't have been dating him if otherwise they would have been like, well, it's a lame boyfriend you got there. But
that's true. I didn't think about that. So
yeah, she seemed like she didn't really. I mean, she was like friends with him, with the nerdy guy, but she was kind of indifferent toward him as far as anything beyond friends. But she was definitely more into Michael.
But she couldn't get close to him because he was dating Crystal.
Right.
Okay. So, by the way, let's back up for a quick second here. This hardcore dates the movie because when she breaks up with him, she says, "Oh, what is it?" He's like, "Come on, bullshit," and she's like, "That's exactly what my Cosmo Romantiscope said you'd say, Michael." Who reads Cosmo anymore? I mean, back then, yeah, but anyways, it just that always
have that in print anymore.
Good question. That even as a kid, that always stuck out in my mind. That she just tosses this magazine to him and walks away. I'm like, what? So he says, "Yeah, we'll go out. I'll take you out." So he goes home, and there's his dad making out with the Betty Joe Cosmetics lady.
Yeah. His dad, Barry, should have been played by Wilford Brimley. That would have been so much better.
Especially having him with that cosmetic lady.
He was played by this guy he's been in everything. He's been in War Games. What is his name? The dad.
Not Wilford Brimley.
No, it is not Wilford. Barry Corbin.
Yeah.
So he's been in everything from War Games to Northern Exposure. He pops up in a lot of 80s movies. And I don't know. Did you get a sleazy vibe off him or just like a lazy dude?
Kind of a little bit of both. Got more of a sleazy vibe from the cosmetics lady, Dolores.
Yeah.
With the dad, I think it was more like the typical blue collar loser that was just happy to have a woman that's paying attention to him after a failed relationship or whatever.
Well, if you're well, I don't think he was, because the hardware, he owns the town's hardware store, so he's got to be doing okay for himself.
Not so much a loser as in financially, but just socially.
Oh, I
like,
see what you're saying. Okay.
like the guy who is constantly friend zoned. Oh, everybody likes that guy. Oh, great! I just described myself. It's like the guy who, hey, everyone likes him, but let's not date him.
Yeah, but we could very well replace you, Russ, with Wilfred Brimley.
Oh yeah, well,
so you got that going for you.
I am pretty diabetic now. I'm gonna have my diabetes.
Diabetes.
Oh, that would have been great if he was in that movie and he's kissing that girl and he'll be like, "You're so sweet. You're gonna make my diabetes act up."
I don't know. There's just a part of me that finds it disgusting when Michael walks into the apartment and she's feeding him an egg roll.
Oh gosh, I always I hate it to see anybody feed anybody anything.
It should have been like, apple pie and ice cream.
Uh-huh. I'm in a diabetic coma.
Apple ice cream. I got diabetes from apple ice cream. So he, of course, and this is where they establish that he's better with cars than people. There's just kind of like a plot thread here. So
because cars don't involve calls to Liberty Medical. You guys didn't send me my diabetes testing supplies this month.
Jesus Christ. Okay. So, wow. So let's see here. If I remember correctly, no, he walks out the front door and he even gets her name wrong. He's like, "Nice meeting you, Louise." Louise.
That part was awesome. I love that part.
So
kind of like it's so indifferent. It's like whatever.
So he picks up Ellie, and where does he take her? To the old Dawson Field, an old a junkyard outside of town, an old abandoned military base.
That's only because they didn't have a big R.
Jesus.
They didn't have a Woolworths.
God. So they get onto the base, and he's looking for a piece of equipment or something he can rebuild for a science project. And as they're walking, he falls through the ground into an old fallout shelter. And I will say this, this was a touchstone. This was one of the first Disney Touchstone pictures. When Disney spun up Touchstone, this was green lit in between, I can't remember the gentleman, the guy that was heading Disney, and Michael Eisner. So it was green lit under this one dude, and it was finished under Michael Eisner's. This is one of the very first Touchstone films. For those in our audience that don't know, Touchstone was created by Disney so they could do more adult orientated films without using the Disney name. Where's some like Down and Out in Beverly Hills, for example, was done under this banner. So he's in this bomb shelter, and I'll say this: whoever did the set design for that bomb shelter, that was cool. All the old posters from the 50s, all the old rations that were down there, everything's covered in dust. But while he's down there, he sees this case, a box that has this glow. So he pulls out this device, and if you notice, while he's checking out the flashlight, it kills the batteries of his flashlight. So he takes it up, and by this time, she screams because she sees a rat in the security forces guy who's guarding the bay or who's guarding the base. I wouldn't want that fucking job.
Well,
Comes out
clearly he didn't either. He was pretty inept.
true, and he's sitting there building a house of cards while listening to the ball game. And I don't know, man. How the hell did he fit in his uniform?
There's one thing about that though. There is no way in hell that fucker passed a PRT ever.
It's true.
Soggy fat bottom sack of shit.
As he's running, you can hear him. Let's get him. Come on, let's get
Yeah,
yelling to the dog. I'm like, yeah, no.
That motherfucker, the only thing he ever ran for was a cheeseburger and a donut. He wasn't doing a 1.5 PRT in under 12 minutes. Sack of shit.
Wow. So he climbs up out of the hole.
I hate fat people.
Hey, fat person.
So am I.
Oh, wow. So they start hoofing it because they got to get off base, of course.
They pretty much could have walked away. I mean, that guy was never going to fucking catch him.
Now, my question is, why didn't he release the dog?
Because then he'd have to chase the dog too.
Yeah, but the dog could have stopped them. But no, he's sitting there running with the dog. Come on, let's get him. Let's get him. Like, no, dude, take the dog off the chain. That's what you're supposed to do.
Dog was as inept as he was.
He had compassion for the thieves. It's like, I don't want to really catch them, and I need this movie to go forward.
That and all the paperwork he would have had to have filled out, you know.
No doubt. He's like, that's harder than building a house of cards.
That means shit, I'd have to do something.
So they get out and they're driving back to town. And as they're driving back, you see they call it the gizmo. It's sitting in the, I don't know why he put it in the window of the car. I have no idea. But it drains the battery and kills his car.
Maybe he was planning on using the back seat for something else.
Could be. Could very well be.
Or maybe he was just a crazy freak and also was planning on using the trunk.
Well, you know what happens, right? I mean, he obviously graduates, joins the Navy, and next thing you know, he's in Top Gun. So,
yeah, well, there you go.
So, his car dies, and this isn't something that happens to him. Remember, he's like, she's like, "Come on, it happens to everyone." Yeah, well, not to me. Well,
yeah, insert dick joke.
Right. So he flags down a trucker and he gets a hold of Vinny. Now, Vinny having a CB surprised me and didn't surprise me at the same time. Come on, his car is awesome. He's driving a Nova with fucking Christmas lights in the windows. And he's got the fucking disco ball hanging from the center, and he's banging his girlfriend in the back seat. Sounds like a perfect Friday night, don't you think? So he gets on. Vinny goes to rescue him. He's pushing him back to town, and here comes the infamous scene you were talking about, Russ. This is one of my favorite scenes in the movie. Guy's behind him blowing his horn. He looks up. He's like, "Sit on this butt plug," and he pulls a chain, and up comes a glowing neon middle finger. So seriously, your mom didn't like that scene out of everything else?
It's just, I think it's one of the few times Mom actually sat down and watched the movie with us, where before it'd be like Star Wars or something like that, and or the movies were at the theaters where she couldn't say turn it off. But it was just one of those things where I think she wasn't too thrilled with the movie start. I wasn't either, so I didn't have any complaints because I was about, let's see, 87. I would have been about 10 or 11. So I wasn't getting any action vibe at this point. I'm just seeing some guys run through a junkyard. So I'm kind of like, this is boring. I want Star Wars. but yeah, mom was like, oh, that's horrible. But I also think she was also more offended by gestures because her brother and sister are deaf. So there's a lot of sign language. So I think seeing the middle finger was more verbal than hearing F bombs, if that
I
makes
see.
any.
No, I see. That makes total sense. But so they get back in because it's mentioned, but I never noticed it until I watched it again. When Michael's talking to Dennis Hopper, he asked him, he's like, why haven't you finished your science project? He's like, well, I've been working double shifts down at Charlie's garage. Charlie's garage is literally attached to the hardware store. So he's working next door. And as they're checking out the car, they realize it fried the electrical system. It fried the starter, it fried the battery. By the way, what did you think of Vinny's girlfriend? Was she supposed to be like a clone of Cyndi Lauper?
Yeah, if you ordered her from Wish.
Yeah, it definitely was the stereotype. Let's make the new wave kinky girl or whatever carbon copy. It was, in fact, at first I thought it was Cyndi Lauper. I'll admit, I was like, huh?
Well, and seeing as how they didn't have wish.com, back in 1985, it would have been Finger Hut. Mail order Cyndi Lauper from Finger Hut.
Jesus Christ.
I bet they had to get a credit card to get her too.
Good enough for them is good enough. Yeah.
Christ. Well, I don't know if you guys noticed what she was doing. She's sitting there with that exercise bar and she's 99, 100. And she looks down at her shirt. No, it didn't work.
Yeah, that was a good job there, Disney.
Wow. It makes you wonder how did Touchstone survive this movie?
Well, it did fairly well. It did better on the home video market than it did in theaters, but I mean, it was your stereotypical 80s comedy, 80s sci-fi comedy. So let's see here. So he realizes, his car's shot, and so next day in school, they're in the typing class. Do you notice what he passes over to him? They're sitting next to each other, and he passes over something to Vinny. It's a Hustler magazine. They're sitting there reading Hustler magazines in the middle of fucking class.
Well, yeah, it wasn't like they could look up porn on the internet back then. They had to do something.
Well, it's true, but someone's definitely got it in for you, Mikey. So next is when they're back in the auto shop and he starts cleaning up the gizmo. And you're into props and whatnot. I know we've discussed this before. I think the prop for this thing is really cool.
Yeah, it was actually pretty cool. Replicating it though would be an overwhelming pain in the ass, but it could be done.
Right. For those that don't know what we're talking about, it's essentially a large plasma sphere. How would you describe it? It's encased in, it has like a frame around it, I guess you would say.
Yeah, like boxes kind of. They didn't do like Ghostbusters with the ghost trap where like the pedal was used, or they used like Radio Shack off the shelf kit
Parts.
boxes.
Right.
This one actually looked like it was like custom sculpted, and that's kind of even a dumb way to put it, but it was actually, I mean, it was a cool prop. It had some cool features that actually did stuff on screen.
Mm-hmm.
Another dumb way to put it, but because what prop isn't supposed to do something cool on screen? But no, this was actually like they didn't use a whole lot as far as like the mechanical parts. They didn't really use a lot of special effects, they didn't have CGI yet,
right?
Really. So like when they turned the those bars on it,
Mhm.
it actually did something.
Right. Same thing when he hits the button and the thing rotates and the lights come on. So that it actually did the prop actually did that.
Yeah, it actually had some good practical effects
Mm-hmm.
for
Like I
that
said,
time. I
I
mean,
would
it is kind of impressive.
I would kill to get a replica of one of these. By the way, if any of our listeners who are into prop building know where we can get plans for one of these, please email us so we can find out. Because Art and I have been looking and there's nothing available as far as I can tell. But so he's cleaning the thing up and he activates it. So him and Vinny are checking it out. And he even says, he's like, well, what do you think it is? Like, well, it could be an engine, but an engine to what? So he grabs the battery, the infamous bag, hook it up. No, I'm not going to hook it up. You hook it up. This is a running gag through the whole film. So he starts running some juice through it, and then shit goes crazy. You got lights going all over the place. How would you describe that? Like that light ring that shoots through the room,
Yeah, it was almost like an EMP pulse.
right? And as they're standing there, this vase from ancient Greece materializes and just appears in front of him. And of course, Vinny's like, man, this is weird. It's like something out of the Twilight Zone. So they unhook it. They not sure what this was. So they put everything in like their storage bins, cover it up, and they walk out and they're 2 hours into the future. So they check with Bob. Bob's pissed off because they missed their science final and they want Bob to check it out. And of course, the gags. So I'm late to my anti-war. How does he put it? He's like, I'm off to an anti-war alumni meeting, and I'm late. Can you dig it? I'm like, really, dude? Really? You walking around with a peace sign? Come on, man. It's the 80s. The 60s were over, and the 60s sucked back then too. So calls Ellie, and they go to grab the gizmo and take it up to him. You guys are feel free to interject here. I don't mean to be talking all the time. Am I missing something?
No, just you're covering it much better than I can.
Oh well, so feel free to interject if we get to a scene that struck out to you or something, please. So Michael goes back home to grab his shit, and he walks into the living room, and it's way different from the last time we seen it.
And his dad and his now stepmom are watching 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
And everything is
to tell you lads. But yeah, that pink, that when I saw that
yes.
scene, all that pink, I was like, I would so disown my family. I'm moving out.
Dude, it looks like, I don't know, like the inside of a weird Barbie doll house that like blew up pink chiffon everywhere.
It reminds me of the scene of Superman 2 when they go to the honeymoon suite and they have
yeah.
Yes.
It was like too much pink.
That and that the and he even said no, here he's wearing this ugly ass fucking, what was it, a light blue tuxedo?
Yeah.
And she looks like a weird Southern belle. And he walks in, he's like, what do you think of the color scheme? Dolores did it. You remember Dolores, right? He keeps getting her name wrong. So he bought, and then the bombshell, you were going to come in and socialize with your new stepmother. Do I make myself clear? Just to look at his face. Stepmother. Oh God. So he gives the dog some food and sneaks out the window. Now, in the interim, no, I'm wrong. He picks up Ellie and they go to see Bob at in the classroom in high school. And did you notice what he says when he's grading? when he's grading the papers, he says, what was the question? He's like, who discovered the theory of relativity? Boy George. So they get in, they show him the gizmo, and of course they turn it on first, and he kind of breaks it down a little bit. He's like, where'd you find this? He's like, because it's generating power and light without heat. And that should be physically impossible, at least from a physics standpoint. And of course, they get into the argument again about who's going to hook up the battery. So he hooks it up. And the same thing you got before with, the lights and the weird solar wind flying around. And Bob realizes what it is. He's like, what it's doing is when you run power through it, it is creating a warp through time and space. How you would control it, I'm not exactly sure. But so Bob decides to plug it into the outlet so it has unlimited power. And Bob gets sucked into the warp. And now it's gotten so bad in there, they can't stay, so they leave. He goes home to figure out what's going on, and he gets arrested. No, I'm sorry. Let me back up for a minute.
They go and they blow up the.
Yes. Let me back up for a minute. This is because they realize they have to stop it from getting power. So what are we going to do? Blackout town. So they break into the hardware store, steal some dynamite, like all teenagers do.
Yeah.
And they drive out to the edge of town to blow up the high tension power lines. Now, I will admit the scene with the car racing the power was cool, because I've read this was an actual car and they did kick in the blower to actually film the scene. So go
My
ahead.
question: why do they have to race the power? Because if they want to take it out, they just have to blow up one, and it'll cut the circuit.
You're right, and I never thought of it that way. Were they energized or something that they couldn't touch him after they went through? I don't know.
Well,
no.
it was just sucking power. So it's like they could have just the same thing is could have yanked the cords out of the outlet again too, because just like how they knocked the connectors off the battery.
Right, but I think the reason they couldn't do that, at least in the room, is because
it got too powerful. But still, this it's on the high tension lines, and if they couldn't blow it up or couldn't, all they'd have to do is stop the circuit. They didn't have to try and race the power.
I never once did I ever think about that. Wow.
So when I'm watching that, I'm like, why? Cool.
Well,
I like seeing cars go fast. I like races, but
it gives it an excuse to use the blower on the car.
Oh, we need the V8 Interceptor to make this movie work.
Hey man, the car from Mad Max would have been cool.
Yeah, that's what they should have done. Just have Mad Max like time warp into it. He shows up, is like, just looking there, is like, the war hasn't happened yet.
I was just thinking about that. This movie had the potential for all kinds of crossovers.
Like the Wraith.
The Wraith guy.
Oh, dude, that's what was the engines for. It was for the car.
Ah, okay. I like that.
What I don't understand is, how in all time travel and warp movies, this had absolutely no repercussions or worry about altering any kind of future. It's like things are coming back from the past. It's like that dinosaur they killed.
Mhm.
What if it was an important part of future history events, but they yanked it out of its time? All of humanity could have been destroyed because they shot that dinosaur with that grenade launcher.
But we know it wasn't because, well, they used that dinosaur in Super Mario Brothers, the movie.
Wait a minute,
Bob
what?
Hoskins, oddly enough, was also in that.
Jesus Christ. Well, if you remember at the end when Bob comes back, he even says, he's like, he's like, he goes back to the 60s and he's like, the future is a groove, man. I made sure of that. So it looks like Bob alters time when he goes back to the 60s.
No. They just made that motorcycle movie again that he
Easy Rider.
Yeah, Easy Rider. Because he came back wearing the exact same clothes.
Oh,
You know, the
shit.
worst part is that it messed with his head and he ended up becoming like a terrorist and he started attacking transit buses and,
Yes.
and picking on Keanu Reeves. And which is probably why Bill and Ted had to go back in time for their history project, is to undo everything that this movie did.
This is true. And then later on, you know, Kirk and company end up going back in time to San Francisco, and maybe he met up with Bob Roberts.
You know, that car, you know, when they're racing the telephone, or,
The GTO.
yeah, the GTO, they were actually trying to catch Marty McFly.
We don't need roads.
I think he was going a little faster than 88 miles an hour.
Yeah, not at first though.
No.
Until he lower.
Wow. Okay, so I don't even remember where the hell I was.
Sorry.
That's right. He gets back to the house or his apartment or whatever, and there's fucking the cowboy looking cop. How creepy is that? You walk into your room through the window and there's some cop smoking a cigar. Where you been, kid? That isn't creepy, no way. Yeah, the dad's just gonna let him sit in his room so he can question you. What the hell?
Well, Dolores probably allowed it.
This is true. I mean, when you see
Dad
him,
probably didn't even notice him walk in.
no, he's too busy banging Dolores on the couch.
Oh God! Oh, bad mental image.
She's almost as bad as Tammy Faye Baker, almost.
So what you're saying is the cop walked in at like warp speed because you know he was done in like 2 seconds.
Wow, that's a mental image I didn't necessarily want, but okay. So they arrest him and take him down to the police station, which I've worked there. I work IT. I've supported police departments before. In no police department I have ever seen is a setup like that, where they take him in, they get him the information, and you notice they take him around in like a big circle to get their mug shot done and whatnot.
Like the DMV.
Right. And it's like, where are the holding cells? How come these people are not in holding cells? And they look over and there's a bunch of cops drinking, what was it, Jim Beam, and playing cards. And Vinny even says, oh, look, tax dollars at work.
I was actually kind of disappointed that the cop wasn't Randy Quaid.
Randy Quaid.
Well, you know, the cop is from that movie, Mr. Boogedy, you know, that Disney.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm so, and the minute I saw him, I'm like, that's the pain dad that couldn't defend himself from a retarded ghost.
Guy's name is Richard Mauser, Masur.
Yeah, he was licensed to drive too.
Okay. He was a dad, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I knew I had seen him somewhere before. I couldn't place I recognized his voice. I just couldn't think where I saw him before.
Yeah, he was in a lot of stuff in the 80s.
Yeah, okay, McLeod. And of course, this is where Vinny says probably the most popular or the best line in the movie. He gets his mugshot taken, and the cop comes up to him and says, hey kid, why do you wear sunglasses at night? Just because when you're cool, the sun shines on you 24 hours a day. She takes him and slams him up against the wall. Just chill out, Butch, and get a shave. So
that part made me laugh.
So from here, he went back up for a sec. He before he leaves for the for the police station, he calls Ellie and says, "You have to go to the high school and take the gizmo to the police station." Well, now I'm thinking about it. They blacked out town, so he thinks everything's safe. And of course, there's Sherman wanting to know what the hell this thing is. And he plugs it back in and starts it up again. Now, my question is, Sherman's a pussy, right? She could have kicked the hell out of him. Why didn't she stop him?
Well, on top of that, he is so into her. Her saying no, don't do it. He'd been like a puppy dog. Okay.
Right.
He would have done anything she said, but instead he's all like, "Oh, we need to make the plot keep going forward." I have an ounce of bravery all of a sudden because the movie needs it.
So, so he plugs the thing back in and the warp starts up again, which that's impressive considering they just blew the main power lines. I don't think they would have been fixed that fast. Do you?
Oh, hell no.
Man. We just had an ice storm here and we're still having power problems off and on. And that was 2-3 months ago.
Well, it is California, so so he kicks on the warp again, and the disruption causes the police station to lose power, and they sneak out. Now, I find it more interesting that they didn't confiscate everything from their pockets, so Michael still has the keys to his car. And they didn't impound his car. It's still sitting in front of the police department. So Michael jumps in his car and Vinny grabs a police car and they drive to the high school. And of course, there's this big swirling mass over the high school. And, they're going, Vinny's like, I'm coming. But if I'm going to go into another dimension like Barbarino, I'm going in there packing it. He grabs a 12 gauge, which is smart. I would have done the same thing. And of course, Sherman gets out and they lovingly convince him to help. So I guess here would be the bulk of the time travel of the movie when they're walking through the high school. Especially, I did think it was neat when they're walking down the hallway with the lockers and there's people from different time periods going in and out, but they can see each other. Did you notice that they could see each other?
Yeah, it was kind of like everyone's confused of what's going on.
Right. So like you had the guys from the Revolutionary War. So let's see here. So they're walking through. What was the first thing they come across? The Roman gladiator, right? Was it the Roman gladiator?
I think so.
There were people, but then it was the Roman gladiator that was the main actual physical contact type of.
Right. So Sherman, what's he saying? He's going to kick our ass. So they kill that. No. Neanderthal man. Remember, because Vinny beats the shit out of him with the shotgun. And it's when he realizes it's empty. It doesn't have any rounds in it. Then they meet the gladiator. Kills the gladiator. Now, I will say this. I think they did a good job in the next scene when they go into Vietnam in the downed aircraft. That was an impressive set because that was a full-size aircraft they used.
Yeah, that was cool.
The fuselage. They saved the pilot from being captured by Viet Cong, kill them and take their weapons. Now, I never noticed it until now. I did have a problem with this. At what point are VC walking around with American weapons?
And not only that, those weren't the M16s that the Americans used at the time. Those were the M16A3 service rifles, which came way later.
And it's
well, it's a time warp. They found them along the way.
I guess, but
yeah, why didn't they have AKs and SKSs?
Right.
What I don't understand is how can 3 high school students, one of which is loudmouth, but probably not very physically capable. One that's a nerd that's definitely not capable, and then the Motorhead guy be able to take out Neanderthals, gladiators, and professional soldiers.
Yeah, that I had a hard time with too. That was a load of crap.
Yeah, but
It's like the gladiator would have totally, the dude outweighed him by probably 100 pounds. And he's like holding him back. It's like all he would have had to do is fart on that little boy and he would have died.
well, you figure that gladiator is what, about 6'2"?
Yeah.
At least. I see your point. I never quite looked at it like that until you just mentioned it. But yeah, the VC maybe, because they weren't professionally trained soldiers.
Yeah. Okay. I could, and
But
catching them off guard, and the fact that they're in a high school locker. And that's another thing. What are they going to do with the guy if they take him prisoner? Take him to the gym?
well,
You're going to wash socks.
they're going to feed him to the dinosaur.
Oh.
So that comes in probably the next biggest set piece when they walk into the gym and Sherman goes, "This plant has been extinct for 60 million years." And he just kind of noticed that. Okay.
Yeah, it's like you got all this other going on, and you're like, "Oh, look, it's a plant." And it's like, how would he know that anyway? Because even some of these botanists that would know this stuff on, like, it's like, is there a fossil of this plant? That everyone, I don't know. It's like, how do you identify a plant so quickly?
Well,
Especially maybe it was a specialty. That's what his entire life has been focused on, is fossils of that plant.
No, wait a minute. Let's think about this. So everyone's seen Jurassic Park, right?
Yeah.
The blonde in Jurassic Park. What was her character's name? Wasn't it Ellie?
I couldn't tell you. I haven't seen the first Jurassic Park in a long time.
Because I was thinking maybe the Ellie in this movie is just the chick from Jurassic Park in the future.
Oh. What if she's, oh my gosh. That's how they got the dinosaurs. All that
Right.
line DNA from, what was it? Frogs or
Frogs.
that frogs and
Frogs and
sap
birds.
from from the mosquito or whatever it was trapped in the amber.
Uh-huh.
Now they just use that gizmo.
They use a gizmo. Okay. I get it. Sure. So of course the hole appears in the fucking wall of reality and in walks in a T-Rex. And I find it fascinating that the 5.56 rounds were doing absolutely no damage to it.
Yeah, I was like, they're not bulletproof.
Right. They got 30 round mags, and I didn't notice any of them change out their mags. Did you?
No. I figured the cameraman did it.
And of course, he just happens to have what is it? A 203 round loaded in that thing, and blows a giant hole through it. Now, realistically, I could kind of see that. Although I will admit, I did like the effect of when it hits the ground and its guts are like, burning inside of it. I thought that was kind of neat.
I wanted to see someone crawl inside of it.
Yeah.
I was like, ooh, it's the cave of wonders. Find lamp.
I was waiting for an Empire reference, I thought they smelled bad on the outside.
The outside.
That would have been great.
It's funny you mentioned that, because I was just going to bring up, if they actually did blow a hole through that thing, could you imagine the stench in that gym of the burning dinosaur flesh?
Well, all the cavemen would have come running. Oh, dinner time.
And then I think we might have missed it. The mutants for the apocalypse.
Oh yeah, those guys. That was just that was annoying. I did not like those guys at all.
Well, if you noticed, the dude had an axe. It was the same one that appeared in the wall in the auto shop before they switched scenes. Now, my question is, no one noticed that big ass shiny rainbow colored axe in the wall of the auto shop the next hour?
Did you ever take auto shop in high school?
No.
Yeah. See, weird things happen in auto shop. You don't question. You just leave it and keep busy with what you are assigned to. What happens in auto shop stays in auto shop.
Ah, okay. Okay. So they of course they get up to the top and he's able to fight his way through and disconnect it. And of course, he gets sucked into the warp and then miraculously brought back. I think it would have been cooler if he didn't come back. But then again, at the end, you have Bob come back from the 60s, like we said, and he tells him you have to get rid of the gizmo. So what does he do? He takes it right back to Dawson Field, drops it in the hole, and just reattaches the trap door he fell through. End of movie. Wouldn't you want to bury it or something?
I'd keep the damn thing.
If it's that dangerous, wouldn't you want to get rid of it where no one could find it?
Maybe, but at the same time, what I was thinking was like, it'd be safer if you actually gave it to people who would protect it, or just use it or keep it until you're about ready to die, and then fire that puppy up and be like, if I'm going, the world's going with me.
Well, they could have gone to the future and given it to the Avengers.
Tony Stark. Well, maybe that's what happened.
So the mini, or so what he made a miniature of the gizmo and uses it to power the Iron Man suits.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, screw the arc reactor.
Yeah, no. The only problem is that Iron Man just has to go drain that half the city of its power for every 2 steps he takes.
So all in all, like I said, I grew up with this movie. I like this movie. How would you guys rate it? What are your thoughts on it now that you've seen it all the way through?
I like it, but I think it very much had in a lot of ways it felt kind of like watching an alternate Wraith film. If you think about it was in like a desert town, a small town, and the cars and everything. It felt like it was a step away from the Wraith. Like that was the town where the Wraith took place, or where the story from the Wraith took place before an apocalypse. Like just before the apocalypse.
Okay.
And partially because the Wraith feels like post-apocalyptic.
Okay. Russ, since you had never seen this, well, parts of it, but
now I love 80s cheesy movies. I love the over-the-top action, but I really had a hard time with this movie. And I know part of it's probably because I didn't see it when I was younger, and I've seen so many other movies since then that this lost some of the cool factor that might have been there when I was younger. Because I've seen those kind of special effects in other movies. I didn't care about any of the only time I actually felt any kind of like I didn't care what happened to them. I really didn't. You know how you get like that feeling like, oh, I want to see them succeed, or I want to see that person die. I was like, I don't care. The only thing I felt bad for was the dinosaur. I was like, the dinosaur is just there. It didn't want to be there. And then they shoot it. It's like, it's a dinosaur. But
wait, I give me 1 second. I just realized something. So, but think of the foreshadowing though. You have Touchstone, which is owned by Disney, and the 3 bullies are running around in a Vader helmet and 2 Stormtrooper helmets. Foreshadowing.
Yeah.
Sorry, Russ, go on. It just popped in my head.
Yeah, that was, but yeah, for overall, I had a hard time sitting through it. I kept seeing the guy from Christine. And I was like, come on, Artie, run over him. And then I kept seeing the girlfriend from La Bamba. And And I'm like, oh, da, da. You know, when you've seen La Bamba.
That's
Well, I'm
Right.
like, it's like the dude is, where's Christine? I miss Christine. This is a car movie. We got cars. I want to see a cool car that kills people. I don't want to. I don't want to see cavemen with machine guns or, It's just I would.
that's awesome.
You know,
Okay.
I'm actually I enjoy chatting with you two about this movie than I did the movie.
I actually have a hard time watching Fisher Stevens in anything.
Yeah, I that's another one.
And
Early
it's
edition, the TV show. Did you guys ever watch that? He was the obnoxious friend to the guy who would get the newspaper that told him the future.
oh, that's
I
right. I
kept,
forgot about that.
I kept seeing him, and while he had some clever lines, I'm like, man, that guy's just a little freaking weasel. I want to see a dinosaur eat him. I was sad he didn't die.
Which I have a hard time watching Fisher Stevens in anything because I have this family photo, and my dad in the late 70s and early 80s looks just like him.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, your dad doesn't act like him though, does he?
No, thank God.
Oh. Yeah, it's like no matter what, he's another one of those actors. Like the guy, oh, I can't think of his name, but the one who was in Christine, you could tell he's a decent actor.
Yeah, he
I
was in
did,
Back to School. I can't think of his name.
I, like I could see this was a different movie. I wasn't, given his haircut and the look and being a motorhead car guy was very much like Christine because he was all into cars in that movie too. So I that's where the association came from that I couldn't get away from is
Mhm.
because he just kept, it was like the same character in a different setting. Uh, but the girl that was on La Bamba
Mhm.
and then Fisher Stevens, I just, it's like everything they did, I just kept thinking of other movies, other shows, everything. And it was, sorry for anyone that knows, I'm having camera trouble. So if I keep popping in and out, I apologize.
It's all good. So, okay. So, how would you rate this? How would you rate this?
Honestly, if I,
Scale of 1 to 10.
a two,
A
I,
2? Come
I'm
on.
sorry. No, I talking to you guys about it is a 10, but actually sitting in through and watching it, I will never watch this movie again. I, I don't, I just didn't like it.
By the way, did you watch the credits? Did you watch through the credits? Because there's more scenes with Vinny through the credits.
Yeah, where he's
Uh,
in the police station.
Well, even that.
uh,
Well, he's in school in his. At one point, I wonder if they were like deleted scenes or something because he's walking down the hallway and he hits on this chick, and next thing you know, his girlfriend's behind him, standing there with a goalie stick, going to beat his ass.
okay, I saw some of that, but
It,
I just, I'll be honest, I was just tired of
uh,
watching
there's
Fisher.
actually some.
I'll have to go back and rewatch it then, or the
Go back,
credit.
go back and watch the credits because some of those scenes are kind of funny.
Yeah. But
But
yeah, I'm sorry. I know you love this movie, but I just
I
I
grew
didn't
up
hate it, but I'm being honest here that I'm not a fan.
a 2. Come on, man, it's got to be at least a 4. I mean, if
A four
what
I would watch again. A four is something that I might be like, oh, I'll give that another watch. This I'm not going to watch again.
see, all right, Art, what do you how does this thing rate for you?
I would have to rate it at least a 5 on its own. But when you factor in the prop in it, the actual prop of the gizmo,
Hmm.
I'd give it a 7.
Okay, just for the prop or the
Yeah,
complexity of the prop alone.
just the complexity of the prop alone. Yeah, it definitely deserves a higher rating. But other than that, I mean, and seeing it as a kid, the way it was shown at first, I honestly thought it was a prequel to the Wraith. because it was on like the USA. What was it? What was the was it Captain or Commander USA's Groovy Movies?
Okay.
And that was actually how I saw it and the Wraith as a kid. I didn't see him on HBO or Showtime or Cinemax. I saw the TV edits. So, and the way it was kind of presented, there was actually one right after the other.
Okay.
So, and I think it was sometime around like 1987.
Okay. So this had been out for a couple years. All right.
So before that, I'd actually never heard of it. So yeah, I definitely a 7 if you factor in the prop and the complexity of the props, but the claymation, God, that was bad even for 85.
Yeah. See, I did like the prop. I could see why people would want to have a replica of the prop, especially if they grew up with this movie. So I see what Art's saying about giving it a higher rating for the prop. But I mean, in that, if I did that, if I looked at it that way, there's so many movies that have some great props in it that just blow chunks.
At the same time, though, this whole movie, like when they do the time warp thing, you half expect Gwildor to walk in. The prop really is only a step away from that musical key.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, it's just I don't, maybe I was just in an extra pickly mood when I watched it. I don't know. And it might just be that my associating it with so many other movies and different things, because like I said, I didn't see it as a kid, except up to the point where the middle finger came up. I saw that first part.
Right.
So I have no childhood nostalgia of this movie. In fact, I kept getting it confused with Weird Science, which I've seen most of Weird Science, but not all of it. And so I just, you have like this level of expectation, and then hearing people love this movie, and then I see it and I'm just kind of like,
Well, I don't know. Maybe it's my rose-colored glasses, right? Because like I said, I watched this movie a lot as a kid. My aunt had it, and I was bored on a Saturday, I'd throw it in, right? So I don't know, maybe it's I think I'm with you, Art. If you factor in the prop, it's probably about a 7.5. On its own, 5.5, 6. And I love this movie. But watching it now, I think you're right. Yeah, I give it about a 7.5, including the prop. So would you recommend it?
Watch at least once, yes.
Okay.
Like if I had to pick, say, 1,000 movies to watch before you die, yeah, it would definitely be in there. If for no other reason than the prop.
Okay. The prop in the GTO. Come on, the car is cool.
oh, that's another reason why I didn't like it. Look at what they did to that car by the end of it.
Yes.
I know it probably just wash off, but and I'm sorry, the end scene when he's all like, "It's just a car," and it's a complete turn of character.
Yes, it's a total 360.
Yeah, it's because it's love. I was like, bull crap. I'm sorry. There's, if I had a gal, because I have my Torino, that means the world to me.
Right.
And I had a gal like, oh, let's just leave the car and go walking. I'd be like, look, you go walk and you get me help. I'm staying right here. I'm not leaving my car for some jerk to come screw with.
Oh, it's broke down. It's not like they're gonna steal it.
Well, dude, taking crap on it or anything, scrape it up. You know how people are.
Oh,
come back and the tires are gone, lifters are gone, friggin' everything's gone, doors.
The engine's what, dude? It's not in Detroit. Come on. The engine's missing. So
come back.
I'm in Oregon. We got them. They're rednecks.
So final thoughts, guys.
Oh, it would have been so much better if Wilford Brimley had been in it. I could say that about so many movies.
Diabetes.
Diabetes.
You realize
Yeah.
we're gonna have to review Cocoon.
Oh, yeah, that one would be fun.
We're gonna have to review Cocoon.
I'm only 50 years old, but I look like I'm 90. It's my diabetes. When he died and he wasn't even 90, I was like, holy shit. I thought he was like 80 and 85.
Right. So
I don't age. I just look like an old shit at the age of birth.
well, he even looked old when he did The Firm. And they tried to make him look younger, but he was still, anyways. So anything
diabetes.
diabetes.
Liberty Medicals, all those Liberty Medical phone calls. Where the fuck's my diabetes testing supplies?
I had apple pie last night. I'm gonna die. Get me my meds.
I'm pissing blood from apple pie and ice cream.
Anything else we want to add?
I haven't had a boner since the Carter administration.
And even then, it was pretty rough.
Only lasted a second.
That's only because I saw Jimmy.
I had to flick it a couple times to make sure it was still there.
Jesus Christ. Well, on that note, thank you everyone for listening, and we will catch you on the next one.
And make sure to have your blood sugar tested.
And make sure to call Liberty Medical regularly so they get you your damn diabetes testing supplies. Me and Dick Richards do it all the time.
You ever watch Robot Chicken when they have Tweaky from Buck Rogers going to have a testing? And it's like, I'm sorry, Tweaky, but you have diabetes.
Oh, God. Oh, my God. Man, cut. That was awesome. Let me take a piss and I'll be right back.